How we doing? How we doing? I know this is going to seem super weird, right? I just was messing with my phone because I've noticed that if I look directly at my phone, then I'm not looking at the camera and the camera's over there. So I'm blocking the camera with another phone. So a bit of an unusual method, but trying to make it so that we can have eye contact here. That's the one negative to recording a video on a phone. Pro tip is that you want to have an external camera or some way to force the point of view to be centered, right? Because otherwise it ends up looking like you're staring off into space and people think you're not looking at them. So it's the only bad part about recording this direction with the camera. Now, if I had the camera flipped around the other way, I probably wouldn't have that problem because I could set up, things around it to orient the camera to make it look good. But anyways, you're not really interested in the idiosyncrasies of iPhone filmmaking today. We're going to talk about AI because literally everyone is talking about AI every day, all day, nonstop. And maybe that's not true in all aspects of your life, but if you are a pre-sales engineer or you are a CTO or you are doing literally anything with technology, you don't hear about AI, OpenClaw, Claude, like at least 3 times a day, probably not living. So this is going to be really hard because I've got some mixed feelings about AI. On the one hand, I sell AI solutions, and I've always thought that smaller models that people own, that they can train with their own private data, and that they can control the means of production, as you were, that's a good approach for artificial intelligence. And up until the LLM revolution, I guess you'd say, with tools like GPT-2, that's pretty much the way AI worked, just in general, was you had your own systems. Those graphics cards that would be running large models would be fairly expensive, but you had to have them yourself. You couldn't really pay someone to go and really run anything applicable to your use case, because oftentimes you would have to either pre-train or provide your own data for a particular use case. It was true data science. Now, the transformer did some really great things in that it created an intermediary between language as the way that we speak and the way that our documentation is written, and statistics. That's basically what a transformer is it is a statistics or mathematical representation of language. And it turns out that's super useful. It's not always accurate, but it's super useful. And sometimes it's not accurate because we're not accurate. And sometimes it's not accurate just simply because we haven't done the due diligence or training or any appropriate guardrails in order to make sure that the thing that came back gives us an answer that's hopefully what we're looking for. So sad to say it, AI isn't perfect. And when I say AI, I'm using the colloquial term, the large language tools that we're all kind of used to, not time series database or gradient descent, right? Like, we're not talking about old school stuff. These tools are tools. They're not going to do everything and anything. Now, could we build a system that includes LLMs and other tools working together in order to accomplish some things that maybe look like a takeoff? It looks like the singularity? Yeah, probably. But the thing about tools is that they're just that. They're tools. They're extensions of your own personal capability, and they're extensions of your own willingness to learn and adapt. And being willing to learn and adapt is what this game's all about. And I say this game, and I mean not just working with AI, but also being in a revenue role. The one thing that's a little bit different about working with customers from a technical point of view and working on business problems versus working strictly on technical problems is that a technical solution can usually be relevant for a very long time. Like, for example, exiting Vim. I know that people like to joke about that, right? But like the whole exiting VI thing, the colon Q exclamation mark, like that's been useful for like 50 years. There's nothing about that particular skill or that particular, the basic keys that are in VI. You could still use those in Vim today. Or the Unix command line. So a lot of the Unix utilities that we use today in Linux are basically the same utilities that we've had for 40, 50 years. A lot of those skills are very pertinent. Now, if I were to go and pick out my copy of my old solution selling book, there's probably a lot of stuff in there that's no longer relevant. Like anybody that tells you to, send a fax or make a phone call or create an acetate, those things are no longer relevant. Because guess what? We don't print onto plastic sheets and go put them underneath of a physical projector in order to show off our presentations anymore. We use a computer. We use PowerPoint or Google Sheets or something, right? Like those tools have changed. So, and because those tools have changed, business has changed. And I want you to be thinking about the cadence at which you have to adapt, because it is different for technical skills versus business skills. They don't work at the same time. You would think they would, because oftentimes business needs are reacting in response to a technical change or a technical revolution, but it takes a little bit longer for businesses to catch up on what's going on in the bleeding edge. And the larger the business and the more protective the industry, the greater that is. This is even true for technical industries. Like, for example, I work a lot with telecoms. They actually are fairly advanced in certain aspects of technology, but in others, they're very conservative. And it just depends on whether it's a piece of technology that gives them exposure to risk, or if it's something that helps reduce that risk. I work for a fairly risk-averse industry. Some industries are a little less risk-averse. Another example of a less risk-averse industry might be the crypto industry. So if you work with companies like Ripple or Coinbase, for your products, you're probably more likely to have a little bit of a more malleable view of technology and adapting to it. The Coinbase right now is pushing out this X402 initiative for being able to have agents transact payments on their own with a protocol, which is super cool. But that's something that they can push through because they're a crypto company. If, say, JP Morgan were to do that, it probably would have a bit of a different connotation and a bit of a different risk profile. And you have to be aware when you are selling to businesses or when you are learning new technologies or applying new technologies, what that risk factor looks like. So the question is AI going to take my job? I doubt it. And it's not I doubt it because of the technology part. It's I doubt it because the business requirements for a technical salesperson are very different than the technical requirements of the tool. There's a lot more that goes into being a revenue-ready engineer than just simply knowing the technology. There's so much more. And those things that there are more of are things that people will lean on and demand more in the future, because things like presentation skills or human communication face-to-face are things that you cannot substitute. There's not going to be some magic robot that's going to go and talk to a person and convince them to buy a product. It could possibly happen in the very, very far future that we may have engineers that are robots simply because they can handle a lot more technical knowledge. But I think in terms of the human experience, people really want to talk to other people more than they do robots, and they're going to want to have that sense of connection. So be thinking about when you are moving through your own career and deciding what types of technology you want to cover, what kinds of businesses you want to work with, what people you want to see and work with on a day-to-day basis. Be thinking about how the business and the technology that they work with align and how they don't. Because oftentimes the things that you see on X or the things that you see on Reddit or the things that you see on LinkedIn don't really reflect reality. And part of that is because they are powered by technology. They're not really powered by people. Sure, it's people that are interacting to a certain extent, although more and more of that is bots these days. But really, those opinions are oftentimes shaped by machines. It's literally machines helping people make those decisions. It's algorithms, right? This is a machine that is influencing the way that messaging comes out. It's not a true human interactivity in the same way that talking to someone on the phone or being in the same room as them is. Yeah, I know it sounds like I rambled. I'm sure I probably rambled a little bit, but I want you to be thinking about ways that any technology is going to affect the way the world works and the way that your career works. And when you decide you want to take a new role or you decide you want to take on a new challenge, make that decision based on the people that you talk to, not necessarily on the technology. All right, thanks so much.